For those of you who don't know me, my name is Laurie Piper. I look after Visit Murray Speyside, who are the destination marketing organisation for our region. This lovely lady in the lower part of my screen is Jo Robinson, who is the Visit Scotland Regional Director for our area. We see a lot of Jo and we deal with Jo on a regular basis, and Jo's team are partly the industry relationship managers that look after you guys' businesses, but comms people and all those kind of secret guys in the background that you don't see, but the output of their work you often see. And this lovely gentleman up to my left hand is Riddell Graham, who I've known on and off for 100 million years, and I'm twice as old as I look. Riddell's a really senior leader at Visit Scotland, who has a long and complex job title, which I don't suspect actually sums up what you do, or in many ways is even vaguely related to what you do. I think you're just one of Scotland's tourism heroes. So you do a really hard job in really terrible circumstances just now. And I guess none of us assumed we were going to be sitting here now. So that being the case, how about we have a chat about where we are, where we've been and where we're maybe going. If anybody has questions, I know we've had one submitted in advance, but I suspect there will be burning questions coming out of the funding instruments of recent days, and in fact, presumably recent minutes and hours. So without very much more ado, I will hand over to Riddell Graham. I think you can share screens and stuff, and if you need me to press any more, just let me know. But I will be quiet and I'll bow out and switch off my screen to save bandwidth. Over to you.
Laurie, thanks very much, and hello everybody. And I'm not gonna share any screens. I'm just gonna take you through some of the thoughts I've been having in relation to Scottish tourism over the past year, but also current position, and then a wee bit crystal ball gazing. I take no responsibility for what I'm going to say, particularly in the look forward, but I'll try and cover questions that arise. So, yeah, thanks very much for inviting me to address your meeting this afternoon. At the beginning of a new year, on the back of what has been without doubt one of the most challenging and surreal years in the history of Scottish tourism. Just as Laurie said, who would have believed a year ago we would have experienced a virus that closed down all of Scotland's tourism industry, stopped international travel, and continues 10 months after the initial lockdown to have a significant impact on the way businesses are able to operate and people's ability to travel around the country or indeed into the country. Visit Scotland, for its part, has always recognised the importance of a strong network of destination organisations, which is why, way back in May last year, concerned at the potential impact of the virus on income, we introduced the Destination and Sector Support Fund. And I was delighted to see such a huge demand for the fund, including from your own organisation. And even although we couldn't quite support everyone to the level they asked, we did disburse over £500,000 to almost 90 organisations, representing in excess of 10,000 businesses throughout Scotland. And on the back of this experience, it's been great to see the 3-year, £3 million commitment provided by Highlands and Islands Enterprise to continued support for Highland destination organisations. I'm sure, knowing Laurie as I do, your committee will be making a strong bid for accessing the available funds to benefit Murray Speyside. As part of the Cabinet Secretary's Tourism Task Force recommendations made last November, Visit Scotland bid in for a substantial increase in funding to support tourism recovery and significantly expand our marketing activity. Our marketing activity when it is sensible to do so, and also to increase the pot available for the Rural Tourism Infrastructure Fund, and significantly from your perspective, create a new fund to support destination marketing and product development. Unfortunately, our initial bid for marketing monies has been unsuccessful. However, we have managed to convince Scottish Government colleagues to set aside £1.2 million to support sector and destination organisations to improve their operational efficiency and effectiveness and be ready to market when the time is right. Details of this fund are due out very soon, but I'll come back to funds in more detail later. Throughout the pandemic last year, destination organisations and Visit Murray Speyside in particular have played a key role in representing the interests of their members, in lobbying government to ensure this area's voice has been heard loud and clear, and impressively embracing our Good to Go scheme, reassuring communities that it was safe to welcome visitors, and reassuring visitors that Murray Speyside was a safe and welcoming destination. I have to say I'm particularly impressed with the T-bid model developed by Laurie, which I think offers a great opportunity for many other areas in Scotland to learn from as they develop a more sustainable approach to their funding. For all of the work that I've just referred to, can I offer a huge thank you. You've made our work in Visit Scotland so much easier to deliver, and we look forward to working with you even more so in the future. As you'll be aware, when domestic visitors were able to travel and visit last year, this brought with it its own set of challenges, with media headlines focusing on so-called dirty camping, camper van hell, and vivid images of totally irresponsible visitor behaviour. This led our Cabinet Secretary, Fergus Ewing, to create a visitor management task force chaired by my Chief Executive, Malcolm Ruffhead, with the purpose of putting in place for future years a more robust system of communications, infrastructure investment, policing, and a policy agenda. And a report from Malcolm's group is planned for the next 2 or 3 weeks in readiness for the season, or what will be left of it in the year ahead. In my day job as director with Visit Scotland, once a week I have had the privilege over the past 10 months to chair the Scottish Tourism Emergency Response Group, a group made up of senior representatives from the Scottish Government, key public agencies, and the industry through the form of the Scottish Tourism Alliance. The main focus of their work has been trying to ensure the concerns, worries, and challenges being faced by you in the industry have been captured and effectively communicated to those with the power and resources to help within UK and Scottish governments. An action plan focused initially on the 4 Rs of respond, reset, restart, and recover, and that has been reformatted to match the key themes of the National Tourism Strategy, Scotland Outlook 2030, and the recent recommendations of the Tourism Task Force. If you haven't read the action plan, I would thoroughly recommend it, and it's available as a copy on our corporate website, VisitScotland.org, as it covers a huge amount of work in terms of support packages, marketing, research, insights, scenario planning, skills development, all of which have been developed, funded, and rolled out in support of you in the industry. That, of course, is all about the past and the here and now, but what about the future? Well, as far as Visit Scotland's work with destination organisations is concerned, the one thing that the past 10 months has taught us is that we don't just need to continue working with you, but indeed we need to enhance that relationship. I'm in the process of developing a new, more joined up approach to our support and engagement to enable you to access the right people and the right resources across all of Visit Scotland. And as Laurie said, I know you already have a good relationship with our Regional Director, Jo, and she will continue as your main point of contact. Jo will sit down with your committee, listen to your plans, your ideas, your ambitions for the future, update you on our plans, and develop a very simple joint statement that covers how we can add value to your work to meet your specific needs. And this joint approach might cover marketing, research, events, business support, quality, visitor management, infrastructure. The list is potentially endless. We would then create a tag team made up of representatives of each part of Visit Scotland to develop a fully fleshed out plan, identify what we can do to add value to your work over the next 12 months. So in advance of that, here are a few headline thoughts from other parts of Visit Scotland. On the marketing side, given all the challenges of not being able to carry out significant above-the-line marketing in recent months, our focus has had to be on trying to keep Scotland front of mind with all our potential visitors throughout the world. We've achieved this through online activity, social media and video content, such as our hugely successful Absence Makes the Heart Grow Fonder video, our Only in Scotland campaign, our Guide to Safe Travel, and most recently, our online travel trade event, Scotland Reconnects 2020. In the lead up to Christmas, our focus was on encouraging Scots to embrace all things local. When it was able and possible to do, shop local, visit local, eat local, discover local. And this will continue, albeit obviously in a modified form, given the most recent lockdown announcements. But to reassure you, plans are in place to respond immediately if and when we are able to, with a fully integrated, significant marketing campaign in all our key markets, both domestically and internationally. And themes such as Dream Now, Plan for 2021, followed by Dream Now, Book for 2021, then Dream Now, Travel in 2021. And the timing of the UK and European consumer activity will really depend on COVID circumstances. But the intention is to be in market with some awareness raising from the middle of February, if that is at all possible. And we have a new video in development for this activity. Assuming we follow a similar pattern to easing out of the last lockdown, our activity in Scotland will focus on the work we're doing with the Visitor Management and Education Group around enjoying the outdoors responsibly in order to get ahead and hopefully prevent some of the issues we saw last year that I referred to earlier on. On the funding side, and I suspect there might be a few questions on this in the chat. You may be aware, and I hope you are, that the Scottish Government announced a series of funding support budgets for tourism, hospitality and events on the 21st of December last year. I think it's important to note that the announcements only covered the sums of money involved and at the time was not supported by actual funding guidelines or application processes. Indeed, we as an organisation only found out we were delivering some of those funds for definite on the 21st of December. So we've been working flat out to try and develop appropriate criteria and application forms ready to do the proper launch and announcement. These are all being developed now in partnership with appropriate industry bodies. And so we'll be launching this later this month or in early February. And of the 24 or so funds that are about to be announced, Visit Scotland will be delivering 9 of them, covering events, visitor attractions, hostels, outdoor activities, both marine and on the land, coach operators, and international inbound tour operators. All the other funds, and there's funds covering self-catering, bed and breakfast, and other parts of the industry, will be managed by either local councils or the appropriate enterprise agencies. Full details of all the funds and application deadlines will be published on VisitScotland.org, and we'll make sure Laurie is made aware of all the details as soon as they become available to enable you to apply. I wanted to pick up short-term lets because I know through regular discussions with the Association of Self-Caterers, we're fully aware of the concerns of the self-catering sector in relation to planned new Scottish Government regulations on short-term lets, including a new licensing scheme and planning control areas. We have been lobbying Scottish Government hard to defer the introduction of this, but I'm not confident we've hit a hotspot there by any means. Of recent concern, though, brought to our attention is the new proposals potentially won't just cover self-caterers, but may also include bed and breakfasts. And we're urgently seeking clarity on this and all related issues to do with the new plans. Our insights team produce a whole range of research and information. And I think it's very encouraging to note that the emerging trends from the team all play very strongly to the Moray Speyside tourism offer. Connection to the nature and the great outdoors has increased with the new countryside audiences, particularly young people. Wellness, connection with people and authenticity, unique experiences, luxury travel, and then of course, as ever, the importance of hygiene and COVID secure environments, booking flexibility, and shorter planning and booking times. As an organisation looking forward, we've got a strong focus on responsible tourism, which is all about making better places for people to live in and better places for people to visit. And this requires operators, hoteliers, governments, local people and tourists to take responsibility and action to make tourism more sustainable. And we're hoping to have a major influence on the massive event happening in Glasgow at the end of this year, COP26, when all the eyes of the world will be on Scotland in a way that's never been before. I talked about looking forward, and this is where I take no responsibility for what I'm going to say. I'm just going to blame our insights team. Joking aside, what does our scenario planning team think the future might hold? Well, they said before the end of last year that the times would remain challenging for consumers, increasing COVID infections, further lockdowns, worries over household incomes and job security, resulting in people watching their spending and where they go and what they do. And they were absolutely spot on as far as that was concerned. Given the huge ongoing increases in infection rates and lockdowns with no clear timetables and timelines in place, predicting what the 2021 season will look like is well nigh impossible, despite the availability of the vaccine. Our insights team suggested last year that the national picture would continue with lockdowns, confusing regulation being introduced and then reversed, limiting the capacity of tourism to open up and having a lasting effect on confidence. Optimistically though, if the vaccine rollout happens as expected and society follows the government guidance in terms of living with COVID during 2021, I would hope that from June onwards, our world as it is interpretation of how tourism looked after it restarted following last year's lockdown should kick in. In conclusion, the one thing I can say with absolute confidence is we see Visit Murray Speyside and all the tourism businesses in your area playing a vital role in the recovery of Scottish tourism. And we look forward to working with you even more closely in the future to help you all recover in a responsible and sustainable manner. Thank you very much, and now happy to respond and answer any questions.
Thank you very much. That was that's hugely informative. I think just for people to get a sense of what you've been doing is incredibly helpful. And 24 funds. Yeah, you know, that's brain bleeding if you think about the administration, the government, the governance that go around that. I mean, clearly there are people who've fallen through gaps, fallen through cracks, whatever you want to call them. There are so the things that come to me most often are organizations or operators who maybe don't have a business, a bank account, but on every other level, absolutely spot on. I think we're making some progress with that. We have those people who are in, you know, B&Bs and B&Bs and guest houses have had a terrible time, particularly around those who are semi-stick, so maybe a residential house with letting rooms. So I mean, I'm hopeful that some of these funds that are coming in the next few weeks are targeted to try and address some of these people who've fallen through those gaps, aren't they?
Yeah, Laurie. I mean, just to cover the business bank account, certainly all the funds we're administering are not asking for a business bank account. They are asking for evidence of business insurance, because irrespective of whether you've got a bank account of any shape or form, there needs to be some element of insurance from a governance point of view in terms of the running of the business. So what we are asking for, and we just need to make this clear, we're asking for details of a bank statement, not to check up on the balance. We don't care if you've got £10 or 10 million. What we care about is that you've got a name and address of a bank, sort code and account number, so that we send the money to the right place, number one. So we're trying to keep the evidence required for all of these funds, from our point of view, as limited and as simple as possible. We're hopeful that even if you've had money in the past, last year, that will be completely discounted. So there was worry that, oh my God, I got some money away back in April, May last year. Will that stop me from applying? Certainly, as far as we're concerned, the answer to that is no. There are separate funds for B&Bs, guest houses, and also self-catering. And government have made it really clear that they want these funds targeted at people that initially have had no access to no money at all. That's the whole idea. The challenge is trying to ensure that nobody slips through the net. We got a list this morning of potential operators that may slip through the net, and it is a bit of a minefield. The only thing that we're trying to avoid with the new funds is people potentially double dipping. So I'll give you a good example. There's a visitor attractions fund. So just imagine you have, for instance, a large country house that is a visitor attraction that also happens to be an exclusive use venue that also lets out self-catering, and there are going to be 3 funds that, oh, and by the way, and it also takes in weddings. So there are going to be 4 funds that potentially you could apply for, and we want to try and avoid 4 different applications to 4 different funds. We want to encourage the right fund to the right business to get the best benefit. So that's a bit of a challenge, because we've got to speak to our colleagues in enterprise agencies who are managing the weddings fund and local authorities who are managing the 2 other funds. But we're on the case there, trying to get consistency.
Just very briefly, and then there's a couple of questions in the window. Yesterday's announcement of, right, so I'm going to be careful about what I say here. Yesterday's announcement of extra, or is extra new, or is extra not really extra, but already included somewhere else? And is that included or in any way referred to in the 104 million, which was included, I think, in the 185 million, wasn't it? So I mean, within minutes of the announcement yesterday, I had 10 of that. Is this new? Now I think it's a sort of hybrid of the Richie Sunak stuff from the other week, and then the new fund to go forward. Is that right?
Well, my understanding is that what was announced yesterday was a top up to the Strategic Framework Business Fund. So if a business was already eligible for that fund, then without doing anything, they would automatically get a top up. However, and here's the however, it would appear that self-catering, hostels, campsites, etc., are not eligible for that top up in the way that major hospitality businesses are. Now,
yes.
I've had an email this morning from Scottish Government attempting to explain that, and I've got to say I'm more confused than I was before I even saw the announcement. So there is, as you can imagine, if you're in the self-catering scene, the Association of Self-Caterers, Fiona Campbell, is on the warpath, and she will absolutely get clarity before the end of the day. But there's definitely a confusing piece there. In terms of new money, as far as I know, this is new and additional money that you otherwise would not have got. So I mean, I think that's good news. But it's this, who is eligible, I think, is the one that still needs to be ironed out.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted that yesterday because the definition of hospitality is within the Strategic Framework Fund identified. And for your closure payment and your restrictions fund, well, that actually applies to piece.
Yeah.
But then actually hospitality is specified as XX and X, and it doesn't include what I call, dry accommodation.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
yeah.
So that's an issue, and I'm afraid I can't give out any clarity.
Well, they won't be messing with Fiona. She'll be doing her thing. I don't, so there'll be nowhere to hide. Okay, so let's turn to the room. So a couple of questions here. So one from Stuart, who is the operations manager at Johnson's of Elgin. I guess not the year you would have expected either, Stuart. With the loss of high spending visitors from markets such as China and North America, and the removal of duty-free shopping, another associated point, is part of future marketing from VS and indeed partners go focus on re-attracting these visitors from those high spending overseas markets? So I presume the answer is yes, but I guess it's how and when, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I suppose that the when is when we're able to. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not trying to dodge the timeline, but when international travel is going to be allowed, both direct into Scotland and then indirect via London hub. As soon as that is possible, then absolutely we would want to do that. I think the interesting thing is that the Scotland Reconnects event that we had just before the new year in November was trying to do exactly that, was remind tour operators that Scotland was going to be available to them. We are not having the normal event we have in April. Unfortunately, it was going to be in, yes and no, it was going to be in Aberdeen, and it's not going to happen in that format. However, we are certainly going to have an online version learning from the Scotland Reconnects, and that is all about educating the intermediary marketing sector all about the product that is available. So there are, I suppose, to answer a particular question around future international marketing, one will be through independent operators, the inbound international operators, and our online version of that happening later this year, and also direct to the key markets that we've got. So to reassure, we will be doing international marketing at the right time. We'll probably have to kick off, as we were proposing last year, to Scotland and domestic market initially, and then when the airlines open up and we're able to do it sensibly, then we would automatically do that. And we're very conscious of the high spend markets that we need to tap into. So just to reassure the operator there that that is certainly part of our plan.
So we attended Scotland Reconnect, and the message we got strongly from people was that they were absolutely jumping to come back, but that they just needed that, I guess, needed certainty, whatever that is now, much as they could have it. It seemed the case that the further away the operator that I was speaking to, I spoke to the lady who deals with Japanese market, Chinese market, her indication was if it went ahead, the Japanese and Chinese wouldn't be thinking to travel until after the Olympics. That was going to be the kind of first big movement of people. Whether it happens, who knows? But certainly people want to come back, which I think potentially answers sort of Ian's question. Do you think there is, Scotland is going to be well placed when tourism happens again? And is there pent up demand? I mean, I would answer that question as a yes, but I'd be interested from Scotland perspective. I presume you guys think it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we're keeping in regular touch with all the international operators, both those based in Scotland, but also those based internationally. But Visit England, Visit Britain have been running in partnership with us a sentiment tracker, which has been asking consumers, both within the UK and internationally, what their intentions in terms of travel are. So it's very clear that there is pent-up demand. I think the interesting thing, though, is that potentially the market might be changing, and the markets, even internationally, that we thought might be very strong for us might have changed slightly. So we'll be feeding that insight into through you into all the destination organizations to make sure that whatever marketing you do alongside us is placed in the right way. But keep an eye on VisitScotland.org, because there's some really good material coming out there, and Vicky Miller, our Director of Marketing, does regular updates. I'm sure, Laurie, if you need future, then she would be delighted to come along and do an update presentation as well.
I'm sure that'd be lovely. It's been a while since we've seen Vicky, but she's super helpful, and there's nobody that knows more than her. Potentially Chris Greenwood. What a giant brain! I mean, the insights team are right across it all of them. To answer Ian's question in the Q&A, is the sentiment tracker available at vs.org? Yes, I think it is, because I think I've viewed it there reasonably recently.
Yeah, it is.
There's also the Britain one, which I presume is a level below or a level before the Scottish one. That is often circulated and really interesting too.
So what we get is the propensity and the desire to come to Britain, and then we have the cut for Scotland, Scotland specific. So yeah, they're all published on .org, effectively 2 or 3 days after we get them. So if there's a problem in accessing them, let Jo know, and she'll put you in touch with the right link.
I think actually what we could do is we just put links to them on each of our emails. I think we were doing for a while, but then I think people got email blindness of what link am I going to click. I was just thinking today, as we were talking about the 24 funds, that is going to be a challenge for presentation apart from anything else. You know, who am I? I'm a self-caterer. Where to go? What administrative function? How difficult that's going to be to communicate. But so thinking on mark again. Then this is as they used to say in the olden days, a letter flooded in. So an email flooded in, which I printed off because I'm old school. In addition to supporting a regional marketing and development agency like Visit Murray Speyside, how can I, as a local tourism business with a marketing budget and a social media presence, help develop Murray as a visitor destination? So as an individual operator, how can I pitch into that bigger picture to raise Murray's profile? And there's an which is if there was a 5-step, what would it look like? I think the first step on that would be engaging with your industry relationship manager and your DMO, presumably. Yeah.
I'm sure Jo has got a very informed answer to that. I'll give you my insight. I think if you're an individual tourism business and you've got a web presence and you're online bookable, and I think that's, you know, I keep quoting this figure and it hasn't changed very much. 50% of the accommodation listed on VisitScotland.com cannot be booked online through the online booking agencies that we work for and with. Now that to me is crazy. It costs nothing, and we don't charge commission because we're not allowed to. So I think the first thing is you need to make sure that all the free opportunities that exist are maximized, and Jo and the IRM can help on that. That's number one. I think you need to be aware of our national international marketing plans and the themes and the markets we're going after, and decide how you then neatly would fit into that through the work that you're doing at a local level. Because I see a kind of hierarchy. We can give you advice and direction in terms of the key markets. Not all the markets are appropriate to each individual business, because it's fine to say, oh, we'll go after the Chinese market because they're big spenders. But if you don't have the material in Chinese to deal with them when they arrive, and you're not aware of the market needs, then you would be wasting your money. And I think it's important to be aware of where the market is coming from and what's going to be the key markets to the area. Jo, do you want to add anything? Because I'm sure you've got a more detailed insight from a local level.
No, I think that's right, Riddell. It's about the first step being that conversation and finding out, you know, we're all speaking to slightly different audiences, and what, you know, we'll be speaking to audiences with very specific needs in specific markets. Same with Laurie when he goes to the kind of travel trade events that we've already spoken about. He's speaking to travel buyers with very specific needs. So it's about having that conversation to find out what exactly is it, what products you need to develop, what materials you need to have, as Riddell says, in particular languages, or what other expectations these buyers or consumers might have. So there's not a kind of one size fits all or a kind of 5-step plan as the question sort of intended. It starts with that that initial conversation, finding out from there where we can go. Absolutely, relationship managers are out there on the ground ready to speak to businesses, or virtually over the computer at the moment. And certainly Laurie in the DMO as well. He's well connected and has those that market insight to be able to help you.
I guess the thing that some people miss is understanding how funnel works, though, isn't it? That when, not everyone thinks that we're the dog's doodah. So, often I have the question, well, why are you any different to Visit Scotland? Why should we pay for you? Why should we, whatever, when Visit Scotland do this? And we do say, no, think about it in terms of the clues in the title: Visit Scotland, market Scotland overseas. They attract visitors to come to Scotland. It's filtered and flowed through the destinations. And as long as we're pitching in at the right level, because I can never access those foreign markets with my limited budget, but we can via Visit Scotland. And I think if you know what you need, if you know what the question is you're asking people, the Visit Scotland, if you're clear on what it is you need to get an answer to, then there is always someone who can help you find that answer. And if you don't know what is the question is that you're trying to ask, then actually there's usually somebody who can help you figure the question out as well.
Yeah.
So I think don't be shy.
No, I think that the other issue for many people, and sometimes it's a swear word, but I'm going to use it, is OTAs. And I know there was a lot of hassle early on with booking.com in terms of refunds and everything. Whether we like it or not, we boast about having 60 million people accessing VisitScotland.com in a year. When we worked with TripAdvisor a couple of years ago, they had 250 million people a month accessing their website. Now, I know all the issues about commission and everything else, but if you really want reach, then you need to play with the right people to get the right impact. And we've been working with Expedia, Booking.com, TripAdvisor to get the Scottish message out as widely as possible. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be going direct, and that's fine. But I think it is important to recognize that there are different ways to channel your business, and the OTAs are a very effective way to do that. We, just as an example, when we did the scheme with TripAdvisor a couple of years ago, all the Scottish content on TripAdvisor worldwide on Scotland was provided by us. So effectively, we were getting a fantastic bite there. And the great advantage of working with the likes of Expedia is that we can measure the spend and the impact. How many bookings generated to what part of the country, and how much business did businesses receive, which is fantastic. And
they're right at the coalface as well, if you think about the amount of bookings that are going through the OTA third-party market. So
massive.
It's daft not to engage with them.
Correct.
But it's equally daft to throw all your eggs in the one basket.
Absolutely.
Without knowing why. I mean, we are looking to introduce similar platform, because you guys have free to book implemented, I think, some clever free to book. So we're looking at that. We have an assessment of maybe about 50% of the businesses in our patch are in some way connected on free to book already. So that would bring commission free, et cetera, but you need to be on an OTA, so you have to manage your risk, and you've got to split it all around. It's all very confusing, so people don't bother. So I guess don't let the complexity of it stop you trying to do it, and just recognize that they are pretty much where all your bookings are coming from. And people say OTA and they think it's, anything that's not a direct booking is ultimately travel trade, isn't it? So it's understanding how that works.
Yeah, and it should be seen as you have to pay commission, so you have to accept that. So in a way, it's an investment. You can decide not to work with OTAs. You will get less referrals. If you work with OTAs, you have to pay, but you get more referrals. So it's a business modeling thing, and a business benefit piece, very much. It's
a marketing cost. If you look at it like that, it's a cost of getting your cost of sale. To something. Yeah. Okay, so Daniel, our friend from just over our invisible boundary, because we don't see boundaries here, except that Daniel's from over here in Inverness, but don't tell anybody. Well, I would say there was some really beautiful coverage of Cullen in the Scotsman yesterday. A wonderful, wonderful article by a lovely journalist. and well shared, and everyone was super excited about it on Twitter, and it said, link to the Scotsman website, Cullen in Aberdeenshire. So I was straight on to the journalist saying, I think you'll find it's actually in my side. Boom, change it. So not that we see boundaries. Okay, so this essentially is, and you might be able to see it in the chat, but this is the B&B point, I guess, writ large. I mean, I don't know if there's an awful lot more to say about it, but these B&B guys have been slammed, haven't they?
Yeah.
Everywhere you look at it, they're getting shafted.
Yeah, well, there is.
I mean, my words, not yours. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
So we've had a number of comments from individual B&Bs saying, how is it that we're only getting 1 million and self-catering are getting 7? And I've got to tell you, the very simple answer to that is the self-caterers have got their act together. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of last year, ESSC had 600 members. They now have over 1,000 members. So when Fiona Campbell goes into bat with government, she's talking on behalf of 1,000 businesses. To my knowledge, there are only 2 Scotland-wide B&B groups. One is the Association of Scotland's Best Bed and Breakfast, which I think has only got less than 100 members. And the other one is, it's a kind of, I think it's called Scotland's Bed and Breakfast, or Bed and Breakfast in Scotland. It's actually operating out of England and has a handful of members. And so the simple answer is, and I know it's really difficult, but B&Bs need to get their act together collectively. Now, I know that each destination organisation will have B&Bs in its membership. I have a call on Friday morning, first thing, with someone who I think might be keen to try and develop the ASSC model for B&Bs.
Yeah.
And I think if that happens, then suddenly the £1 million that you're lobbying for becomes 10, because you've got a huge collective all in the same boat.
Yeah. What first things? I mean, Fiona was terribly useful and terribly helpful when we were working on the actual Business Improvement District campaign last year. 4 days to go and it will be the anniversary of the ballot anyway. So Fiona was terribly helpful. And actually one of the first things we did after we were up and running was join the ASSC. And our go-to for anything around that is Fiona, who has all the way through this done survey after survey to quantify the economic impact of this situation. So I guess, Riddell, what you say is absolutely right, isn't it? That because she got her shit in gear and she could evidence the massive distress that the sector was experiencing, there's your £7 million. Yeah.
Totally. And she has a direct line into Fergus Ewing, and she managed to muscle in on the STA call with the First Minister. So not only have you got the big number behind you, but you've also got somebody who does not give up. So I think the message there for B&Bs is, I sympathise, but actually, if you can get your act together along the same lines as the SSC, then that would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, we've been thinking, we don't want to subdivide the region too much, but we have been thinking around sector groups. So we have 235 businesses just within the bid who are self-catering, and that doesn't even include the 500, 600, 700, 800 that are on, that aren't registered as businesses, etc. And, dozens of B&Bs who actually, I think it's right to say, have a really quiet voice. So, yeah, well, I'm sure we'd be happy to support kind of activity around keeping the B&B and guest house voice pretty much in people's kind of the forefront of people's. And Caroline is just talking there about Japanese film crew that stayed in Cullen recently. They're making a TV show, weren't they? I remember that. So making a TV show, they had Skink. They loved it. They missed the Northern Lights, which we had in Cullen last night. So perhaps if they come back, we'll see them again. So looking forward, Riddell, this time last year, you were looking forward probably to a really successful year. We were looking forward to this year, last year, being an increase in economic impact, another record year of growth. If we're sitting here in a year's time, hopefully not still on Zoom, but if it is still on Zoom, where do you think, or where would you hope for us to be sitting in a year's time? And if you say on a Caribbean beach, I don't.
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think the really sad thing about last year was that we were absolutely online for record visitor numbers and record spend. So as I said in the wee presentation, the insights guys, I mean, I think we've got to be realistic. A lot of people are talking about, oh, it'll be fine by Easter. I'm afraid I don't support that, given all the evidence. Apparently on the UK minister call last week with the various devolved nations, the suggestion was that early summer would be the first signs of any kind of return to semi-normal. I think what it's taught us, this epidemic, a number of different things. Number one, there were a number of businesses who were struggling before the pandemic kicked in. And unfortunately, they will have gone to the wall. I think there are a number of businesses who've been unbelievably innovative and creative, and I think they will survive, and I think they will grow, and they will be the first to benefit. I did a presentation when I worked for the Borders Tourist Board 100 years ago to the AGM, and I've still got a copy of it. And I had 10 points to answer that point earlier on about the 5-point look. And I think with one or two exceptions, what I said in 1981 at the AGM still stands. And it's all about working with others. That's what your organization is about. It's about embracing the digital technology, whatever that means, being online bookable in particular. It's about being positive. I mean, I'm a glass absolutely full person, and I really cannot stand folk that are always moaning and are always down and are always negative, because at the end of the day, that does no good. It's about knowing your market. It's about knowing how the market's changing. It's about focusing on quality, and it's about knowing absolutely who your competitors are and why they are doing better than you, or vice versa. So I think I'm optimistic that we'll come out of this. We'll come out of it better. It will take probably 2, if not 3 years to get back to where we could have been. But I'm very confident. I mean, that responsible tourism agenda, I think, is really important. We need to position Scotland in a very different way. And government have told us the Recovery Action Plan needs to be about a greener tourism industry. It can't go back to what it was before. It's not about volume, it's about value. And it's also about the fair work agenda. As the industry, and I'm not just saying this, the hospitality industry has not got a very good track record of fair work. Now, that's from a government point of view. We are an arm of government in that we get most of our money from them. So those agenda points are the ones that we will be pushing. So businesses that embrace that and do that well, I think will do well. As a whole, obviously, we're not going to achieve the levels that we could have and should have achieved, but I'm confident that we will return, and we will return stronger.
That's encouraging. And I think, you know, I have to remain optimistic and I guess focused that this is what, month 10, 9 of bids of year 1 of the bid, and a lot.
Oh, frozen.
Lost Laurie.
You've frozen, Laurie.
I just disappeared there, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, well, it's obviously too many people stressing the hamster broadband section. I mean, all I was saying is this is year 1 of a 5-year project, and our first month's figures obviously were devastatingly poor. But I guess we can aspire to re-achieve the levels that we previously.
Yeah, you've disappeared again.
Can't handle your camera, I think, Laurie. So whenever you turn your video on. Maybe lost him for good.
Yeah, I suppose what I was going to say, a couple of things to keep an eye on. One, 27th of January, we've got an industry survey webinar to share the results of our survey before Christmas. So it'll be interesting. And the second thing, and I mentioned it this morning on the call, Laurie, the destination fund. It's not a marketing fund, but I think you could well pitch in for some support there in terms of operational support. You talked earlier about, getting your act together behind the scenes, that would apply, and also market readiness, maybe getting a review of your consumer-facing website, just to make sure that you're right up to pace. So hopefully that will be announced next week. So hopefully you can pitch in on that.
Lovely. Well, just as a final, we have been the very lucky recipients of a website audit from the user experience guys. So we're going to go through that with them next week. This is it here. It's huge, 50 odd pages, and it's all very good. Thousands of pounds worth of value, thousands of pounds if I was paying an agency to do that. So, okay, a couple of things for me then to say thank you so much, both of you. Thank you everyone for taking part. Thank you all for taking time out of your day. We have a webinar with lovely Matthew Quinn from Expedia next Wednesday at lunchtime, and he's going to talk about sort of essentially some of that return trends, because they are seeing it as it happens live. So he and his colleague Rebecca are going to chat to us about that. We're going to put this on an email update, but Business Gateway announced today a digital boost fund, which will provide, I believe, 75% funding for businesses who want to do new infrastructure, new digital technology, new digital stuff. Just announced today. We'll put something out about it, but it seems to me to be a useful way to get 3/4 of your costs of improving a website or a process or something digital and fixed. So don't be shy about applying into that, people. And we'll put that on an email. So look, thank you all very much. Thank you, everyone.